Welcome to Haunt Weekly.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Crystal.
And this is Haunt Weekly, a weekly podcast for the haunted attraction entertainment community. Whether you're an actor, owner, or just plain aficionado, we aim to be a podcast for you. And this week, we come to you with a question. Now, before we get into it, I do not want to create panic with this week's title.
No.
So we'll start off by saying we don't know what we're going to do yet. The whole point of this episode is to go over the decision. We will not have the answer at the end of this episode any more than we do at the beginning, but we want to take you on the ride as we ask ourselves, will this be our final year of haunting? And sort of understand where our brains are at this particular moment in our lives.
Yeah, because we always see about these haunts closing and we report on them on the news. It's been 15, 20, 30 years, all this stuff. And we never know what's going on in the minds of the people doing it as they're coming up to making that decision.
So we're going to do that.
Yeah.
This is a conversation we've had many times before.
Yes.
We have not decided to quit yet.
No.
But yeah, there are reasons this year is a little different, but don't panic is what I'm saying. Now is not the time for panic. We have a lot of time to make this decision. But if you don't want to hear two older people worry and hand-wring about the possibility of opening up in 2026, please check out our other episodes. You can find us at hauntweekly.com, Haunt Weekly on Facebook, youtube.com/hauntweekly is the YouTube channel, and find us wherever you get your podcasts from. Let's see, work we did for the haunt this week. We actually did work.
I took down a panel.
You took down one of the more annoying panels.
Yes.
You did it, and we also went to Joann's.
Yes.
And that's like, well, that's not a haunt thing. But it ended up being one.
Yes.
Fairly significantly, actually, because it's so weird. Like, Joann's is a store I've spent more time in than I'd like to admit.
Mm.
And they're one of those stores that's addicted to coupon pricing.
Yeah.
And so, like you look at, when it comes to Halloween, their skeletons would be like $120.
It was insane. They were the most expensive skeletons.
Like most expensive skeletons by a factor of 2 at least. And then, but all of our Halloween stuff is 50% off today.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. That makes it barely higher than normal,
But still higher.
But still higher. And so they would do this. And so now that they're actually closing and going through the process of liquidating, they're holding these massive sales, and the prices still kind of suck a lot of times. But one area the prices didn't suck was spray paint.
Right.
We went there, they were 60% off, and we actually, at first we kind of had a giggle about, we can still get them cheaper at Home Depot. And we actually pulled up the Home Depot app and did some comparisons and found out, actually, the spray paint there is a few bucks cheaper.
Yes, with the sale, it worked out to be $2 to $3 a can cheaper, which adds up over a lot of cans.
Especially when you add like 20 cans or whatever we bought.
Yeah, so we bought neons and metallics. Metallics are always the most expensive to buy.
And always the hardest to find, too. Yeah. Because like Home Depot will have this big, huge section of spray paint, like 1 or 2 metallics tops.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we stocked up on a lot of spray paint and spent a lot of money at Joann's closeout to do so. So we should be good for spray paint for most of our colors. There were a couple of the pumpkin colors we couldn't buy. They didn't have them.
Yeah, they were sold out of it. Because, they also have it right now where you can just go into the cabinet because it's not locked.
Yeah, it's not, and that's the other thing that's really wonderful is like usually it's in that glass cabinet that you have to, can you come unlock it? I promise not to use this for huffing or to steal it.
Yeah, I know you're like one of 2 people working this entire store.
Yeah. No, it's no wonder they didn't sell any fucking spray paint.
No.
So, yeah. We did stock up on that, and we got most of our pumpkin colors and some different colors for the haunt, and already playing around with some design ideas for those rooms. So, got some cool stuff coming there. But yeah, other than that, we didn't do much this particular week. But yes, moving on.
Moving on.
All right. So, every week we attempt to ask a question of the week. And last week we asked, other than the Houses at Octoberville, which is the one like everyone thinks of first, it seems, what horror films were shot at haunted attractions? And I learned some stuff here.
Yeah. Part of Zombieland was filmed inside Netherworld. That's from Isaac.
Yeah, a couple people mentioned Zombieland. Yeah. I did not know that.
No.
I had no idea.
And we've seen it.
I've definitely seen Zombieland. I had no idea.
Granted, we saw it before we went to Netherworld.
That is true. Maybe we need to watch it again.
Maybe we need to rewatch it, yeah.
Reverse the order, okay. Ryan Greger said Hell House LLC.
Shannon Robles said Hubie Halloween.
And there were a couple others who mentioned Hubie Halloween too. I did not know that was filmed in Haunt. We actually saw that when it came out.
Yeah.
That was the Netflix one. Japes Palace actually said two things. The video for Guar's Eighth Lock was filmed at the House of Shock. That is not a shock at all.
No.
And also noted that a haunt called Scaravania posted seeking extras for a horror movie shoot last weekend.
Yes.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Haunt Season was filmed at Realm of Terror, and that's from Sarah Moon.
And Tim Fowler, Hellfest was filmed at Six Flags Magic Mountain, something else I did not know. Like I said, this was educational.
Yeah, and Jared Haggerty said Hell House series, Terrifier 2.
I have not seen Terrifier 2 yet. I know that is criminal.
Yeah.
I know that is criminal because everyone loves Terrifier right now. I thought the first film was fine. I didn't hate it. I actually rather enjoyed it, but I just didn't glom onto it, I didn't join the cult, I guess. And finally, right now, Fright Stuff at Hell's Gate Haunted House and Haunt Season at Realm of Terror Haunted House. So yeah, it's good to see the haunt industry getting some side gigs in horror films.
Yeah.
Oh, and also we should add the local Zombie Saints commercial was filmed at Chamber of Horrors. They still pull that out every once in a while at Halloween.
Yeah, but it is interesting that there's so many, and we've always said that that's a good side business. For haunts. But I don't know why in a lot of. It's probably because it's hard to find out who to get in touch with, who can make the decision to say, yes, you can bring your film crew on as long as you have these insurances and permissions and all that stuff.
And there are obligations the location has to do above and beyond just being a haunt.
Yeah.
And like you said, there are considerations that the movie needs to make. Especially, once again, this is a great reason not to have copyrighted elements in your haunt.
Right. Because then you can't be in a movie.
It's one I don't think we've actually talked about at any point.
No, maybe one day we'll get our friend who makes movies on to talk about the process for finding locations. Yeah,
and they do it. They do a lot of that type of work, and actually worked as something of a location scout for a lot of people who were doing their senior film theses things recently. Yeah, because they're getting their masters in film.
Doctorate, I thought.
No, those masters.
I don't know.
They're getting a postgraduate degree in film.
Yes.
That's all. Regardless, that is cool. This week's question of the week is, how many of you are thinking of retiring? And I'll add, if you're not, what keeps you from thinking about retiring from haunting?
Especially if you're of an older generation.
If you're a little bit on in years. Yeah. Let us know. HauntWeekly.com, Haunt Weekly on Facebook, and YouTube.com/HauntWeekly. Okay. Right. So, this week's topic is going to be a little bit rough. I don't think it's going to be as rough as it sounds.
No, so basically that was the first thing that popped into my head because I don't want to talk about it, but it's the only thing on my mind. So for me, it is rough, but we've talked about it since the notes were written.
Yeah.
And
this is a bit of a
rare... We're in a different place.
Yeah, this is a bit of a rare scenario for us where you actually wrote the notes, I think 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Or a week and a half ago.
Week and a half, yeah.
And the result of it was writing the notes and me reading the notes and adding some things to them was kind of therapy for both of us.
Exactly.
And we're in a different headspace than when we wrote this, but I think the question is still very valid.
I do too, and I think that, capturing the moment and the entire process of making decisions is why we're doing this. And we'll probably revisit it again over the next few years.
Yeah. And we may revisit it again later this year, even as we get closer into season.
Exactly.
So this may be a topic that comes back up in a few months, in a year, whatever. We don't know. A lot of this is talking about how we don't know what the future holds. Shit can change tomorrow, and regardless of our best laid plans.
Yeah.
So the topic at hand is, do we make this our last year?
Mm-hmm.
And there's basically what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the reasons we're considering it. The reasons we're considering staying open. We're going to talk a little bit about Haunt Weekly too.
Yeah.
And then I think we're going to come back around and discuss these issues more broadly and talk about kind of where we are in our headspace right now today.
Yeah.
So why would we consider closing? Well, first thing we should mention is that this will be our 20th year.
Right.
And this with Bernie Baxter.
Yeah, not in this location. So we do have another 20-year celebration coming up in a couple of years.
That is true.
So that is something to consider. But this is our official 20-year anniversary of the haunted house.
Yes. We've been doing it since 2005.
Mm-hmm.
We first did it at our home in a very tiny front yard haunt in Elders Point. We did it the year of Hurricane Katrina.
Right.
We were back in the city. We were not one of the ones impacted by the flooding. There were lots of kids in the neighborhood, much to my surprise.
Yeah, there were. And since there was not school or anything, they were all, riding their bikes and hanging out.
Yeah, they were doing what you would expect kids to do.
Well, yeah, we saw them more than usual.
Still technically was summer at that point too, I think. Technically, I think school might have supposed to have just started.
Yeah.
But yeah, we saw them riding around, and we were kind of, whoa, there's a lot of kids here. And we quickly realized that there was nothing in the area to do for Halloween.
Right.
And Halloween has always been a very central holiday to us, but we had never actually considered building a haunted house.
Well, not after your parents shot us down for trying to turn their house into one.
Yeah, that sucked. I forgot about that. Probably was best. Some memories are best sent down the pie hole. But yeah.
They really didn't have a space for it.
Not really. We had a neat idea, though.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Regardless, so we decided, hey, we're going to put something together, and we used whatever construction supplies we could get our hands on,
which
was not 2x4s and plywood.
No, because the city was actively rebuilding, so the only things around were 1x2s, maybe a few 1x4s.
I think we had 2x2s for tarp. A lot of it in tarp.
Yeah,
I think it was mostly 2x2s and tarp at the end of the day.
Yeah,
and
It was not built to construction standards.
And I am very glad we only did one night that season, because that thing never was going to last.
No.
Another night.
No.
I mean, but in a way that was me, for me at least, that was going back to the way I would build things at my parents' house when I started home haunting there. Because we would encase the porch in plastic, and we just sort of took that idea and embiggened it a little bit.
Yeah.
But regardless, that was 2005, and we've been doing it ever since. We missed 2019 through 2022. 2019 due to road construction, 2020 and 2021, rather. We missed those 3 years together. We didn't miss 2022. But we missed those years due to road construction and COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're approaching our 20th year
in
2025. And that's really what sparks the topic, because we're doing the story of Bernie Baxter.
Mm-hmm.
And narratively, if we wanted to stop, this would be a good year. But there are other reasons for thinking about it, and we'll get into those now. And the biggest is just that getting older sucks.
Yeah. It really does. We're not as young, and we're not able to do as much physically as we were able to when we started.
Yeah, this is a hobby we started in our mid-20s.
Yeah.
I have a back and knees that do not enjoy these things. I've had GI issues the past few years. I am ridiculously out of shape thanks to not being able to run or really do much exercise. And I now get heat damage so quickly. It is mind-boggling. These were not issues 20 years ago.
No. And I have, health issues that I've talked about on here before. And I don't see them, even though that we are trying to get healthier now.
Yeah.
I don't know how successful it's going to be.
Well,
I'm very pessimistic, but I'm still putting in the work.
Well, I mean, like my back. I actually hurt my back in 2006.
Yeah.
And it was bad for a few years, but I worked on it, strengthened it, lost weight, did things I had to do, and got it feeling pretty good. And then I threw it out in a major way in 2019.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it has been a constant problem. So yeah, basically we're tacking on new medical conditions and new issues every year, it feels like. And some of them are getting better, some of them are getting worse, but it all does make working on the haunt, not so much opening and being in the haunt and acting, but working on building and doing all of that stuff makes it so much harder. I also don't function nearly as well on little sleep as I used to.
No.
It used to be like we would go out there and work until 2 a.m., 3 a.m., get up at 7:30 or 8 o'clock, and do a full day, and then go back and work until whatever ungodly hour again. And that's how we finish the haunt every year.
Yeah, and I've found that I can't do that these past couple of years. So I'm trying to do more throughout the year. Some to different different levels of success with that.
Well, and we'll get into some of the pros and why that may not be the hugest of deals.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is one of the core reasons. Is we look at our aches, we look at our pains, and realize that even if we don't quit now, the time is definitely limited.
Yeah.
The time in which we have to do this part of it is limited. We may be able to act in haunts, and that's one of the things I should say is I don't think us stopping haunting here would be the end of us haunting full stop.
Yeah, and that's in the discussion at the end.
Yeah, but still, yeah. Basically, all the aches and pains. Getting older sucks. Next item is that
several of our haunt crew members have let us know that they're not going to be in New Orleans in a few years. Maybe not even this season, which is rough. It's,
I genuinely think they're going to be here this year.
I think so, but they're still making plans to possibly not.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. They'll see what happens.
Yeah, they're some of our longest term members, and
they've been some of the most consistent in helping with the build and the growth.
Yeah.
Of the haunt. And so yeah, that's a big blow to us. And
even if it's not this year, their life situation is changing. Like we were just talking about, they're in the middle of, or at the end of getting their degree, and their partner, the wife is also, but the partner, because it's another triad, is getting a different position in their job, and they don't know if they're going to like it or not. So, like, everybody's situation over there is changing.
And similarly, our situation's fairly stable still.
Yeah.
I don't think we're in that much flux, but yeah, there's a lot of flux in the world right now too. So
exactly.
So who the hell knows? I say that because I think by saying we're more stable, that's basically a separation of degrees.
Right.
Not a binary thing.
Yeah, and we have been trying to get new members to come back every year, and we just haven't found the right mix.
Yeah,
to
we've
grow.
it's really tough being a home haunt
Mm-hmm.
that can't pay.
Yeah.
We cover expenses. No one loses money.
No.
That's our rule. No one spends money to act with us, but we can't pay. And that, yeah, I mean, people have jobs and people have more important things than to dedicate 3 nights for what much of the city is a busy season.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that, and that's tough. So we've struggled to find new members. We've built the haunt more efficiently, so we needed fewer actors. We're starting recruitment earlier this time around. We've already been doing some work on it, actually. But yeah, we're facing both the loss of potentially like the other half of the core team and the continuing struggles of finding new core members. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there that cuts us both ways.
Right.
And then comes some of the financial realities.
Right.
Homeowners insurance is changing. I don't know how familiar everyone is with what's been going on in New Orleans specifically. It's been a Gulf Coast thing. Florida's been in the headlines a lot with this problem.
Yeah, California is getting
with the fires.
Too.
Yeah. Basically, any area where natural disasters are even potentially common, homeowners insurance has been incredibly difficult. We have spent the past few years on the state-run Port of Last Resort plan. Now, we did just get off of it, or rather, we will be off of it come June, I think it is.
Right, and that's only if we get approved to be on this new insurance. So we're hoping that they will take us, but we don't know what their limitations are or what their requirements are. We've already had to provide some additional information, so we don't know.
Yeah.
And we also don't know how much that's going to cost. Like, it's going to...
It should save us money.
It should. But I've heard people online saying that they were told it was going to save them money and that it didn't. And then I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's an up in the air worry right now until we get a new contract.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with that.
Well, it's kind of bizarre for us because technically our homeowners renews now. Functionally now. It's in April, May it renews.
Yeah.
But because this new plan kicks in June, I think that has something to do with the fiscal year for them.
Yeah.
Or when they picked us up, actually.
Well, no, it was because we had
That's
an insurance, and they were put into bankruptcy, like forced into bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Because they weren't doing the things they were supposed to do.
They didn't have enough liquidity to cover losses, basically.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so then we got on the state plan, and that was in June.
Yeah.
But our policy still renewed in March, but we were covered through June.
Yeah.
So that's how that all lines up and why it's June.
And
now.
it's confusing as fuck.
Yes.
But yeah, homeowners insurance is changing. We don't know if we'll be able to continue doing this on the new plan. We have never made a claim against homeowners insurance.
No.
We've been in this house nearly 20 years. I think we've been in here 18 years, 19 years.
Since 2007.
Yeah. So 18 years now. 18 years almost to the day.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell it to you straight. Yeah, this is a worry. Because homeowners insurance, the market is fucked in any place. And it's wild because, like you talked about the wildfires in California, that was the first disaster to hit that neighborhood ever.
Yeah.
And now one disaster and they can't get homeowners insurance to save their life.
Yeah. Not that other parts of California haven't seen fires like this, but that particular neighborhood, this was the first time that they had been hit like that.
Yeah. And we're having similar issues with flood insurance, even though that doesn't impact the haunt thing.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a lot going on with insurance. We are incredibly safe. We have never had an injury, knock on wood, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, it's still a worry. And then there's the economics in general.
Yeah. I don't know if you've turned on the news at any point or been able to avoid it. If you have, can you tell me how to do that?
Yeah, what's your secret?
I'd really like to.
What's your secret? What rock are you under? Because I'd like to join you.
Yeah.
We'll hang out with Patrick Starfish and...
We'll go into a fallout shelter somewhere.
Yeah. But basically, between whatever the fuck is going on with the tariffs now,
Yeah.
And just the general economy, prices are likely to go up on things. And we actually saw this with lumber during COVID. We actually talked a great deal about how lumber went straight to the moon.
Right.
And not in a good way.
Nope.
And as a result, we postponed some plans.
Mm-hmm.
We had ideas. We just said, well, that's too expensive, and just wrote them right off. Mm-hmm. We're not going to do those. So, yeah, right now lumber is more reasonable. And we're actually going to stock up and buy some while that's the case. Probably sometime soon. But yeah, but the main thing is, like, everything we buy for the haunt, since we're a free haunt, comes out of our pocket with no real hope of recovery.
Right. And to not get too deep into politics, the other economic thing is that my job may be directly impacted. It doesn't look like it yet, but it may be directly impacted by some of the executive orders that are coming out. There's only been stupid changes so far.
Gulf of America.
Yes. Yes. There's only been things like that so far.
I have to laugh or I will cry.
I know. But I don't know how. They are very reassuring that everything is fine and we will be fine. They are also more optimistic than I am.
You know, we are not known for our glowing optimism.
Yeah, I think I'm the most optimistic out of the three of us in this house.
That's likely very true.
Yeah. I've been told that.
Yeah, and you're the household optimist, but you're also the company pessimist.
Yeah.
Because those are all relative terms.
Oh, yeah. It's not that I'm an optimist in the real world, just in this house.
You know, I actually won a speech contest for the Optimist Club, I'll have you know. I'm not actually kidding, I did. This was in 3rd grade.
Third grade. That's before you were a bitter old man, huh?
No, they just had us optimist kids write speeches to give, and it was dumb. But it is where I discovered that I do have a knack for public speaking, so that is true. But regardless, yeah, so between those things, the economic uncertainties are gnawing, and then there's the final factor that we've always said we wanted to end and leave on our own terms.
Yeah.
I always had a rule that if we were ever going to have it last season, we would announce it before we opened.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that was I don't want anybody to unknowingly go to their last Bernie Baxter.
Yeah. No, I want people to know also.
I want them to know they have the chance one more time, and I know that'll probably make it absolutely batshit insane if we do it. But I want people to know, I want people to have the chance, especially because we've been open 20 years, and we've had this conversation before about how people come and bring their kid. They're like, you were our first haunted house,
right.
And now I got little Jimmy here, and Jimmy wanted to come for his first haunted house. And we're like, Jesus, I feel old. Now my back hurts again.
But we're also very warmed and like, aw, that's so sweet.
Excuse me while I crumble into dust.
Yes, exactly.
We've had one do that with their grandkid. They took him, and then the kid was like really little, just went to the yard display, so to be clear. But yeah, there is enough time there that theoretically you could get a 3rd generation.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've always wanted to announce it in advance, and that makes sense this year in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Now, the pros for staying open, though. Mm-hmm. Let's flip the script. Let's get upbeat again.
Okay.
All right, economics.
Weren't we just talking about how bad they were?
Yeah, I know. You wrote the notes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But, okay, so this is not from the perspective of how economics will affect us. We started the haunt because there was nothing for the kids at Halloween.
Yeah.
And with belts being tightened all around the country right now, we're kind of in that same place where we can give something to the community that others may not be able to.
Yeah. And we are fortunate to be able to provide that. That's a privilege.
Yeah, exactly. It's we're very privileged to be in that
And there's
position.
another element of the economics we didn't discuss in the other half, which is, yes, a lot of the prices will be going up, but we are set up in such a way now that we don't necessarily need to buy a lot.
Yeah, other than like candy. Like, I think candy's going to be our biggest expense.
Biggest single expense, yes.
Yeah, because it's all imported too.
Oh, Jesus, Mark, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But I mean, yeah, we'll go buy some 2x4s and some lumber this year, and 2x4s, some plywood, and a few other things. But realistically, we have probably the best layout we've ever had.
Yeah. Yeah, we changed it last year, which means we can stick with it for a few years, and it's working really well.
Yeah, I'm really, really happy with this layout. So it's going great on that front. We don't need to build a lot of new panels. We got to replace the last few pieces of OSB. We've got a few more so other than building things like beds and tables and furniture and items that go in rooms,
yeah,
we don't really have any major construction projects.
No.
And we can, because we built this so well, or overbuilt this so well maybe, we can ride this probably for 5 to 10 more years using the same materials we've already purchased.
Yeah, and as anyone who has redesigned a room without moving walls knows, it's easy to make something look and feel completely different just with a couple of changes.
We did a whole bunch of episodes about lighting.
And
how lighting is...
And what to do if you've got if you're tempted to do a black wall, do something else instead. You know?
Lighting is, to me, the most amazing thing. You completely change the character of a room with the literal push of a button on a remote.
Yeah. Well, we just went to one of our restaurants. We went for an evening dinner. And instead of having their lights on and it being in the daytime...
Like they do when they're normally a brunch place.
Yeah. They had candles out and it changed the entire vibe.
Yeah. Looked totally different. You wouldn't recognize it at first blush.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because usually when it's brunch, it's all the windows are up and everything's bright and sunny and super colorful, and then they pull the shades, and it was already night anyways, but they pulled the shades down, lit some small candles, it was all ambiance-y and spooky-ish a little bit.
Yeah.
It was a little bit creepy in its own way.
Yeah. But yeah, it felt intimate and nice and instead of bustling.
But yeah, but that's the two-pronged thing of economics is, like you said, we provide a Halloween experience largely to disadvantaged, and underserved communities in our area. And we have the privilege and the ability to do that. And, like I said, the economics of we don't have to buy a lot of shit now. So we don't really have to worry about it getting crazy expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, because we're not looking to buy any new tools or anything like that. We just upgraded some of those a few years ago. So
we got the Q line built.
Yeah.
We want to redo the outside L, and I actually do want to do that.
I do too.
But other than that's probably the largest project we have, and that's not that big, and we can probably reuse most of the wood we have for it.
Yeah.
So So basically, it's not as expensive as our gut fears it can be.
Right.
The other big reason for staying open is just good old-fashioned escapism. We comment on every year at Halloween time how stressed we are.
Yes.
We're stressed. We're panicked. We're, oh my God, we're never going to get open. We're going to do blah, blah, blah. But you know what we're not doing? We're not stressing and we're not panicking about everything else in the fucking universe.
Exactly. Because, I really like taking on projects like this with you.
Yeah.
Because we can focus everything on it. We can get any frustrations out in there. And, and like you said, we're just not thinking about the bigger world at that point.
No, during haunt season, I would say from like early September through Halloween, our entire universe is contained in a 25 by 25 foot garage behind our house.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is. I mean, and it was really nice. It's really nice during like election years because you can like pretty much miss the last 2 months of it. Yeah, like you'll hear things like, yeah, whatever, I got to focus on the haunt. And your brain just goes, no, we're not letting that in.
Well, yeah. because between the late hours working out there and keeping full-time day jobs, there's no time to keep up with the world.
No, we're basically, our brain is just like, nope, no room.
Yep.
Banished. You are banished from this brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and and it also gives the neighborhood escapism too. They don't have to think about how we're living in the dumbest timeline right now.
Yeah. And the next up is, while getting old does suck, we are trying to get healthier.
We are.
We are making genuine efforts. We, right before we started recording this podcast, we went on a lengthy walk.
Yeah.
We're trying to get healthier. I'm hoping to get back into running.
Yeah.
I'm thinking my GI issues might be under enough control. Knock on wood. A lot of knock on wood this episode.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wasn't, my doctor specifically told me that I could not exercise for 2 years because when I was anemic from getting older as a woman, they told me that, you don't have enough blood to have enough oxygen getting to your brain without
passing
exercise.
Yeah. We can't exercise without passing out, basically.
Yeah. It was hard to get to my second floor office at work during that time because I had to take breaks, and it's only 2 flights of steps, and it wasn't a big second floor.
No, it was a regular.
It wasn't really tall. It's just, it was.
That was rough.
It was really rough.
Yeah,
but because of those 2 years of no activity, and having to eat iron-rich foods, which are, awfully calorie-dense foods, there's been some changes to my weight.
Like I said, I, with the GI issues, had to stop running.
Yeah.
And that used to be, that's the thing I've learned about me in time, is I don't control my eating nearly as well as I control my activity well. Mm-hmm. When we were doing mixed martial arts and all that, I stayed so thin and so rock hard. I was kick-ass ready to go. And then that ended with Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
And then I gained a crap ton of weight after my car accident, hurt my back. Mm-hmm. But lost it by doing a shit ton of cardio.
No.
And doing some calorie watching, admittedly, but focusing very heavily on the cardio, and then getting into running. Mm-hmm. And then I had to stop that, and guess what happened?
Yeah.
It's just, whoa, it's up, down, it's like you.
No.
But we are working on getting healthier, and we have beaten this cycle before. We can beat it again.
Exactly.
So this gives us a motivation to do that. Mm-hmm. And finally, as you noted, we do technically have another 20-year anniversary we could lean on in 2007.
Yeah, because that'll be 20 years at this location. So that is something that we could, and we'll know a little bit better what the world's going to be like in a couple of years.
Yeah.
So that is another thing.
The other honest truth is there's no necessarily any reason to go out on 20 instead of 21.
No, there's not. It's just a nice round number.
And we all love round numbers, but you know what? 21, get the haunt till it's old enough to drink, and then...
Yeah.
See? 21's a round number in its own way.
It is, and one thing that I forgot to put on here is that we actually have 2 more houses that do big Halloween displays now on our block.
Yeah.
And I don't think they'd be there without us.
It was very interesting when we first started doing it. Mm-hmm. We asked around, said, "Who is it? How's Halloween around here?"
Yeah.
Oh, there's no one here.
No trick-or-treaters.
This used to be the big Halloween neighborhood. There used to be a place where blah blah blah, and they used to do Halloween all the time. And it got really really big, and then they fucked up by charging, and the police shut them down.
Yeah, that was our house, by the way.
Yeah, we found out later it was our house. And so apparently it's just a legal obligation whoever purchases this house has to open a haunted house on it.
Yep.
Which is another reason to not close, because apparently we'll lose the house if we do.
Yeah, that's the way the universe has it set up. This is a Halloween void.
Yes. But yeah, we brought sexy back to the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, we've got 2 houses now. One that does an actual little walk through to get to your candy. And one that decorates their yard up nice.
Yeah. And We've also got a church event that happens, I think, the Saturday before Halloween. It's a trunk or treat, and I have mixed feelings about those, especially in cities. But that's happening now. And we also have a couple of apartments nearby that have Halloween parties and then bring the kids by after.
Yeah.
So it's crazy shit.
It is.
So yeah. So this brings us to another topic. We're also approaching another milestone.
We are.
The 500th episode of Haunt Weekly. And I'm going to admit our enthusiasm has been waning a bit. And part of that is because work schedules have made things difficult.
Right. Like our life has just filled up a lot. And we're trying to get a regular schedule down, and it's not really working out. Because the reason that Sundays is no longer working is because we want our weekend.
Yeah.
And this is work. I know we do it for free.
It's not work, but
it feels like work. It feels like an obligation.
Yeah, it is. And it does feel like an obligation.
And whenever we started it, it didn't feel like an obligation. It felt like fun. But now it's getting harder to come up with topics, and it's...
And one of the things we've been wanting to do is to do more interviews.
Yeah.
We've had several people we've been talking to, and things have fallen through. Mm-hmm. But a lot of it is, I think we kind of reached a peak of that in the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because we did a lot of Zoom episodes during the height of the pandemic.
Yeah. And, there's still a lot more that I want to do. Like, there are specific people I want to reach out to and have on the show. And I don't know. I think that we would have to make a schedule or something. And the other thing is, I personally am not sure how relevant we are still. Because we are getting old. Like, we're some of the old fuckers in the industry now.
Yeah.
There are a lot of young people who can get out there. And when we started, there was no...
And then, bear in mind, I mean, this is almost, I think this is like 9 years ago now.
Yeah. There were not a lot of podcasts to choose from.
There were only a couple, and they were not regular, yeah.
They weren't consistently updated, because I was looking for a podcast to listen to at work.
And mind you, some of these are still going on, and they are great podcasts.
Yeah.
But we had the domain Haunt Weekly. We talked about it. We had it for other reasons.
Exactly.
But we decided to convert it into a podcast, and that's what we've been doing ever since.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
But now there are several other podcasters out there who are younger. There are YouTube channels dedicated to talking about the haunt industry.
Yeah.
And I just don't know.
Yeah, I think the need for us is less than it was that many years ago.
Exactly.
And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great thing.
I think that's ostensibly a great thing for the industry in particular. So yeah, this is something for your thoughts on, I guess. I mean, obviously we do enjoy this. We've always said we would not do this if we didn't enjoy it, and that's true. But we also understand that things have changed and that our schedule has become less predictable. Mm-hmm. Your job in particular has been required. One of the things that your current job has been doing is taking more time in the evenings when we would typically record.
Right.
Because you have production emergencies that you can't predict.
Yes. And I also I need a nap during the day that I can't predict either.
Yeah, that's the only part of getting older.
Because I have the best job structure for me. But it's also, I do have work that I need to do at the yarn store, and I'm trying to figure out where to fit that in on a weekly basis.
Yeah, it's you're basically running 2.5 jobs.
Yeah. And so I don't know.
I don't know.
But I had a few ideas about how we could get around this.
So
one is that we could schedule guest episodes once a month.
Like we used to do, basically.
Yeah.
get back on that rhythm.
Yeah, get back on that rhythm. We could pick a topic and do like a one media review a month.
Mm-hmm.
So we would review more video games and movies.
And the horror movies that we just got recommended.
Yeah, or even going to some of the local horror-themed but not haunt-themed conferences type thing.
Yeah.
You know, I could see doing that.
Oh, yeah. So, I do think Haunt Weekly is going to change come episode 500.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad thing.
No.
But I don't feel like we're going to stop it necessarily. I mean, I it's going to change, and it probably will change for the better. But please, this is where we want your input. A, what should we do for episode 500?
Yeah.
We haven't.
It's coming up fast, and every time we come up to a milestone, we ask, what should we do? And then we fucking forget about it until the day before.
Yeah, basically. So yeah, but yeah, please let us know your thoughts on all this.
Yes.
Beyond that, but yeah, like I said, our interest, our enthusiasm has waned some, not much, admittedly.
No.
I mean, most of the time we still have relatively easy time finding the topic because we're talking about it anyway, as we've discussed multiple times. Yeah. But there have been a few weeks where it's just like, no, we've already talked about that recently, even.
Yeah.
And things like that. All right, so honestly, I just want to say, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
Right now, for me, when we started these notes, when we started this conversation, I think we both were kind of leaning toward this will be our last year camp.
Yeah.
And I think in the process of doing these notes and really thinking about it and thinking about both sides of it, we both have leaned more the other direction. I
agree. Yeah, we didn't even talk about the other new life change, and that's that we have a grandkid with a birthday in early October.
Bastard.
I know. Couldn't hold it in. But yeah.
Told him to wait.
I do think that we're going to continue at this point.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the reason we can continue is because we built for longevity.
We did. Yeah,
if we had to build it from scratch every year, there's no fucking way.
No, or even if we took like major damage and had to rebuild from start now, I don't think we would continue it.
It would depend on what exactly the type of damage.
Yeah.
But we built smart, we built strong, we built with good materials, and we've got a great layout that is very flexible and we can use for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think we're doing pretty darn good as far as the amount of work. And that's necessary because we can't...
Yeah.
You know, we can't do what we used to do in our late 20s, early 30s. We're just like, okay, we're going to knock the whole thing down and build it back up. And we do that every fucking year.
No, we just don't have that kind of stamina anymore.
And the haunt got too big. Those were also not using the full of the garage.
It was not using the full of the garage, and it was using much lighter building materials. Now we've, upgraded everything so that the walls need two people to move them instead of one person slinging panels.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot more of them.
There's a lot more of them, and there's a lot more, like, cross pieces and braces and all sorts of stuff that has to move.
Yeah. And, mind you, doing that kind of construction is what makes it possible to reuse.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, you definitely should be using this type of construction because you won't have to rebuild every year. Like,
when we were using the masonite, that was the worst.
No, the plastic was the worst. But after that...
I don't even count that, okay?
But yeah, the masonite was not...
Because we didn't choose the plastic. We had to use the plastic.
Yeah, no, we chose the masonite because it was cheap, and I had used it for paintings in art school.
You worked with it a lot.
Yeah, but I also didn't realize how destructive customers can be when they are scared.
I remember that first season with the masonite walls, we had like 4 or 5 holes.
Yeah.
from people crashing into it. Like they would hit it with a shoulder and crunch it in.
Or just like fall down and kick the shit out of it.
Yeah, it's crazy shit. And every time it got hit in any way that was with weight and with any kind of like directionality, any like small surface area, it was damaged. And our haunt looked like fucking Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
So that was like, okay, well, we got to switch. And then we switched to OSB, which turned out to be a mistake too. And then we moved from OSB to plywood, which is where we are now.
Well, and basically you can see how much money we had in the household because Masonite at that point was like $6 a sheet.
Yeah.
And then OSB was like $8. And then plywood
was like 12.
is 12, yeah. So
well, and the other thing about like Masonite used to be super cheap. Apparently, Masonite's gone up in price.
It has. It's now on the same level with plywood because people want the smoothness of it.
Yeah, nobody is buying Masonite to go cheap anymore.
No,
In fact,
but it used to be the cheapest thing, and what my art professors told us to buy because it was cheap.
Yeah, if you were going to do large paintings, or you were going to cut them down.
Yeah, they would have us cut them down. Well. Okay, they would have other people cut them down.
Not you. I knew you.
Yeah. I just
like, what's a salt? Paint.
I just did 4x8 paintings. It was great.
Yeah, but that was the thing. It was like Masonite used to be the cheap alternative. And I know there were like we started Masonite. Some of you out there went, why would you do that? Masonite, so it wasn't that way 20 years ago.
No.
Trust me.
No, it was the cheapest thing out there. That would
by a long shot.
Yeah, and we did not have access to pallets before you jump on us.
Not in the quantity we would have needed, especially.
No.
No. So yeah, honestly, I'm glad we did this episode because I do think it pushed us more towards staying open.
Yeah.
But it also let us talk about some of the things that have been worrying us and bugging us.
Yeah, and eventually we will retire. We don't know what will happen after that. Maybe we'll consult with some haunts. We've got some friends who work at haunts nearby.
I would love to continue acting somewhere, maybe even in the same character.
Yeah, that would be fun.
But
who knows?
I would like to continue that and have fun with it, but yeah, at some point it is going to catch up to us. Yeah. But until that day, this has been episode 483 of Haunt Weekly. Is this our last season? You can find more Haunt Weekly at hauntweekly.com, Haunt Weekly on Facebook, and youtube.com/Haunt Weekly is the YouTube channel. Great place to get caught up on the episodes. All of them are there. But until next time, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Crystal.
And we will see you all next week.